Facebook. Yeah, we're live. Okay. Get a song out. Alright. Simple. Okay. Udila Arada. How's that sound? All right, go back to this. Alrighty. Okay. And tomorrow is Ram Navami here. So at least I'm giving the morning class. I think I need to tune this thing. Okay. Udila runa pura papake Dwi jamani gora hamani chanke Pakata samuala ilasate Gaila nangara bruje Tatai tatai Janako Gana gana tai Janero Rivitara dala Saranga Janelu Boraje Kunamandavai Yadavahari Umlena Monore Tanpore Jenas Vache Gailorati Ivasajari Rasaje Emonadula Manamateo Ayakikoro Avanakeo Ibina Machale Sutta Shoda Sutta Charame Bori Belaje Achile Shoda Sutta Kamave Bori Belaje Utitata Manawe Hasta Inageo Moe
Rasta Tabi Kenoe Alasahoe Napajari Doya Najay Jivana Nitya Janasar Nana Vina Parama Namashaya Govi Atana Tumi Kamanda Jay Jivakanyan Sananam Jagate Asiye Madhuranam Aviditi Mira Tapana Rupe Gagane Viran Jay Krishna Namashuda Koryapan Junaya Bakat Pino Pran Amapina Kichu Ahikuara Jonah Buvana Majay Mudila Runa Uralapake Tuitamane Kor Amani Jage Katasamuha Oila Sate Tela Naga Raje Jaya Prabhu Da Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya, Prabhupada, 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 Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Paramacharya. Also Tata Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Savaya Chatanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantagoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Garadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Saim Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Ki Jai Machuradam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samvrita Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hati Hati Bol. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravadi Pacharne Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarane. So let me read the translation. When the rising sun appeared in the east, the jewel of the twice-born Lord Gauranga awakened, gathering his devotees around him, he set out to preach in the countryside, towns, and villages. Tatai, tatai sounded the mridanga drums, and the cymbals chimed in time. Lord Gaurasundar's shimmering golden features danced and his ankle bells jingled. Mukunda Madhava Yadava Hare chanted the devotees, their mouths filled with vibrations. Calling out, they preached to those still sleeping. You spend your nights uselessly sleeping and your days decorating your bodies. Although you have achieved a rare human birth, you do not care for this precious gift. Instead, you refrain from serving the darling of Yashoda and slowly fall through your last moments to death. With every rising and setting of the sun, a day passes and is lost. Why then do you remain idle and not serve the Lord of the heart? This life is temporary and full of various miseries. Take shelter of the holy name as your only business. To penetrate the darkness of ignorance and bless everyone's heart, the sweet holy name has risen like the shining sun. Drink deeply the pure nectar of Krishna's holy name, which is the life and soul of Bhaktivinoda, the holy names aside. There's nothing to be had in all the 14 worlds. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. So, I was just informed in a chat that today is Ram Navami in the South Pacific. I wasn't aware of that. So, anyway, so maybe I should speak about Lord Ram. Let's see. Get on my notes. And tomorrow I'm actually giving the morning class here about Lord Ram. And let's see. Anyway, it's so complicated. Oh, let's see. What aspect of the Ramayana am I going to speak about? I have the whole story here in front of me. Okay. Let's just tell part of the story. I'm not going to talk about his appearance, the actual appearance, because that's a very interesting story about Rishi Shringa. So, Om Gana Timidandasha Gadanshana Shalakaya Chakshur Minitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Maybe I will tell a story about that, since I'm not going to speak about it tomorrow. So, as far as Lord Ram's appearance, okay, let's talk about Lord Ram's ontological position. Let me turn off the phone. Okay. Whoops. Okay, there we go. So, what is Lord Ram's ontological position? Ontological is very interesting. Lord Ram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is Vasudeva, and then you have that Ram, Lakshman, Bharat, and Shatrugna, is Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, which are called the Chatur Vyuha expansions. So, in the case of Lord Ram's appearance, as we know, Krishna speaks in the Gita, Yada Yadahi Dharmasha Gladar Bhavati Bharata Bhutanava Dharmasha Tadatmanam Pritshrijamiham. I come to establish religious principles and protect the devotees and annihilate Vinashaya Chadushkritam. Pratranaya Saranam Vinashaya Chadushkritam. That means get rid of all the miscreants. So that, of course, is what we call the exoteric reason for the Lord's advent. Exoteric means that's what everybody knows. But he has his own reasons. And what are the Lord's own reasons for coming down to this world? Because, as Prabhupada would mention many times, these particular activities like killing the demons can be done by Durga Devi very, very nicely and efficiently. And establishing religious principles can be done by devotees very, very, very easily. Protecting the devotees can be done by different representatives of Krishna, etc. Krishna doesn't have to come down to do that. Of course, Krishna and Lord Ram, they're non-different. So Krishna comes down, or Ram comes down, for his own enjoyment, to enjoy what we call ras. I mean, ras basically means a taste for a particular relationship. And so there are direct rasas and indirect rasas. Of course, direct ras would be like servitude or parental affection or friendship, or the Shanta Ras, which is just passive adoration, or conjugal. And indirect, there's like shock, adbhuta, there's humor, there's chivalry, there's anger, there's ghastliness. So you have all these the 7 indirect rasas. And these 7 indirect rasas are what the Lord enjoys. And so he makes arrangements to enjoy these particular rasas. And one of the arrangements he makes is to have his devotees come down and make believe they're demons. So he can have rasas, lead some of the indirect rasas to the extent which cannot be experienced in the spiritual world. I mean, obviously there's no ghastliness in the spiritual world. And there's anger, but it's not as heavy as the anger of this world. So look at Lord Ram's pastimes. There's anger he was experiencing at Ravan. There is chivalry. I mean, very, very chivalrous. Very, very, very chivalrous. I mean, sometimes he was humorous. There is a ghastliness. He's dealing with all these different rakshasas. So there's a lot of enjoyment there for Lord Ram. So one may question, but what's the enjoyment he got from sending Sita Devi away? Of course, he knew when Sita Devi was apparently kidnapped by Ravana, he actually knew Sita wasn't kidnapped by Ravana because he had made that arrangement that the real Sita would be taken by Agni, the fire god, and there'd be a Maya Sita there, who fell in love with him, which is really interesting. So there's some little conjugal stuff there. Maya Sita actually fell in love with him, and later on, she got married to him, not as Lord Ram, because Lord Ram had taken a vow of Ekapatni Vrata, but she got married to him as Bhudevi, who married Venkateshwara. We understand that Venkateshwara, Balaji, he has 2 consorts, Shri and Bhu, that means Lakshmi, and Bhu, or Bhumi, who is Maya Sita, an expansion of Lakshmi, or expansion of Sita. So that's a whole other story which we don't have time to tell. So that obviously Lord Ram knew about, and his acting, let's say, in separation there was an act. But actually Lord Ram sent Sita Devi away. We all know that story. That Sita Devi was criticized, and Lord Ram was criticized by this washerman. And the washerman, he criticized Lord Ram for accepting Sita Devi back because she had been taken away. And no fault of hers. She had been taken away by Ravan for almost a full year. And so, by the standards in those days, you're not supposed to take someone back, or someone who would be questionable. Someone's chastity would be questionable. I'm not sure I agree with that whole thing. But in any case, that was the cultural standard. So this washerman, he was criticizing Lord Ram and Sita Devi, and Lord Ram sent her away. So the question is, the reason I'm talking about this is we're talking about Ras, or Lord Ram's enjoyment. The question is, how does that give Lord Ram enjoyment? To send Sita Devi away for tens of thousands of years. Because Lord Ram ruled the kingdom for a long time after that. And also, every time he did a sacrifice, Lord Ram had to have a deity of Sita Devi next to him, because a man is supposed to do a sacrifice with his wife next to him if he's married, obviously. Of course, in those days, only married people would do sacrifices. Sannyasis would not do sacrifices. Anyway, that's another issue. Nowadays, sannyasis do everything except for get married. So one may say, what is the enjoyment that Lord Ram? Well, Lord Ram was enjoying separation. And we understand the separation that Sita Devi felt, and also the separation that Lord Ram felt. They were on the transcendental platform, because Sita Devi is the Lord's internal potency, and Lord Ram is the Lord. And so he voluntarily did that so he could experience this mood of longing. I mean, just like in the material world, sometimes we will voluntarily not eat so that we will get hungrier and enjoy food. I don't know if that's an exactly good metaphor. So, but Lord Ram, another point is, which makes it different than the metaphor I used, is that when the Lord experiences that separation from his consort, he's with her. There is actually no separation. Externally, it appears to be like separation, but in actuality, it's not separation. It is actually connection. But in the material world, we've explained this many times before. Separation is separation, and even when you're physically with someone, there's no meeting of minds or meeting of souls, like they say, soulmate. You know, sometimes people talk about going around this material world looking for their soulmate. And whew, what an illusion. So, anyway, getting back to the point, is that he was experiencing this mood of separation. She was experiencing the mood, which is the highest mood because it brings the lover and the beloved on the transcendental platform closer together. And anxiety that he was experiencing is transcendental. We look at our material anxiety and we're not very happy with it. But in the spiritual realm, anxiety can be completely transcendental if it's between the Lord and his devotees, or even between the devotees or feeling separation. Just like, it's called bittersweet. Just like if we feel separation from someone, a pure devotee, like I feel separation from Prabhupada, that separation is actually transcendental, and it brings me closer to Prabhupada. Many of us feel that after Prabhupada left this planet, we became closer with him. Not because he left this planet, but because of the intensity of the desire to associate with Srila Prabhupada. So that really explains why Sita Devi was separated from Ram, for their enjoyment. Now there's another reason too for the Lord's pastimes, which are also, I guess, internal, because it gives the Lord enjoyment to have us appreciate him. And for us to appreciate him and love him and focus our minds on him, we need to hear what he does or did. In other words, his pastimes. Because his pastimes are very attractive. And actually in the Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, 1st chapter, text 4, is an interesting verse, which is Nivritta Tarshar Upagimana, Bhavosharas Shotra Bano Biramat Kautamashloka Gunanavavat Puman Vitajeta Bina Pashignat. That this chanting the Lord's holy names, or the Krishna Katha in this particular case, is able to remove all of our material miseries, Nivritta Tarshar Upagimana. And it's like medicine. Bhavokshara Shotra Mano Biraman. It gives happiness to the mind. And it's medicinal in the sense that it cures our material disease. Mano Biraman. Ka Uttama Shloka Gunanavada. And everybody will be attracted to it except Puman Virajeta Bina Pashugnat. Except for those who are killers of animals or killers of the soul. Like that, or offenders. So this is an interesting statement from the Srimad Bhagavatam. In the 10th canto, 1st chapter, text 4, you can read it and you'll appreciate it. So that's another reason. So we can understand the nature of God, hear about the activities of God, hear about the qualities, Nama Guna Rupa Lila, the name, the qualities, the form, and finally the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Nama, Guna, Rupa, Lila. These four things. The name, the qualities of the Lord, the form of the Supreme Personality. And we hear about the form of Lord Ramachandra and his expertise in martial arts, especially with the bow. and especially the Sita Swayamvar. So many nice stories about that. So that's a little philosophy about Lord Ram's appearance. Then we'll get to some of the stories, which are actually, where is that? I had some of my notes out here. Ooh, I thought I had them. And I just want to refer to the notes. Okay. Whoops, those are the wrong notes. Give me 1 second. Because I wasn't expecting to give a Ramayana class today. Here we go. Okay. So we're going to... All right, let's talk about his appearance. Actually, I don't need the notes for this. Let's talk about Lord Ram's appearance. So, what happened is Dasarath, that is the king who had 3 wives. This is also an interesting story, how polygamy is not a good idea. Even though the kings did it, still it creates enmity. There is always inevitably some sort of enmity or envy. And you see this in the case of Dhruva Maharaj too. So, so we have Kaikeyi, Sumitra, Kaushalya, the 3 wives of Dasarath. Kaushalya is the eldest wife, and Kaikeyi is the youngest wife. And of course, being the youngest, she's the most attractive. And Dasarath previously promised her that her son would actually become the next king. And the reason he did that, he did it twice. Once, of course, when she was throwing her fit. But the first time he did it was that when he was getting married to her in the kingdom of Kaikeya, he promised her father that her son would become the king, the next king. So that was twice. So anyway, getting back to the point. So Dasarath, whose name is Dasarath because he could fight with 10 chariots at once, or fight in 10 different directions at once. That's why he's called Dasarath. Was a member of the Surya Vamsa, coming down from Vivaswan. Surya Vamsa means the Sun Dynasty. As we hear in the Bhagavad Gita, Imam Vivasvate Yogam Praktahan Aham Avyam Vivaswan Manave Praha Manu Ikshvakave Bravit. So there's the Sun Dynasty and the Moon Dynasty. And generally the Lord appears in one of these 2 dynasties. And of course Krishna appeared in the Moon Dynasty, or the Soma Vamsa, and Ram appeared in the Surya Vamsa. So, anyway, he was a member of the Surya Vamsa, and incidentally, here's a story. I'm just throwing out stories here. Here's a story that Lord Ram was already known. It was known about Lord Ram before Lord Ram appeared, because there was a deity of Lord Ram that was being worshipped in that dynasty. And that deity was first worshipped by Vivaswan. Of course, this indicates also that the Lord's pastimes and activities are Nitya Leela. In other words, they're occurring again and again and again. They're eternal. So the Lord's activities and pastimes, whatever Krishna says, Janma Karma Jalme Divyam in Bhagavad Gita. And one who understands this doesn't have to take birth again in the material world. So anyway, the deities of Sita and Ram were being worshipped by Vivaswan. Vivaswan, Manu, Ikshvaku were sent down. These deities were passed down through the cyclic succession, or from father to son, all the way to when Dasarath was there. So it was understood about Lord Ram before Lord Ram appeared. Of course, later on we understand the story of that after Lord Ram appeared, he did not worship the deities, but rather he gave the deities to a Brahmin, who had taken a vow that he wanted to see Lord Ram before he ate that day, and Lord Ram felt very compassionate upon him because Lord Ram didn't want that particular Brahmin to fast. So, anyway, so Dasarath had a problem. And his problem was basically no son. And so the reason that was a problem, for twofold, there was no one to do Pinda for him when he passed away, which is very important in the traditional Smarta Vedic culture. And number two was that there was no one to take over the kingdom, which was actually even more important. So he was really in anxiety, a lot of anxiety. And so he thought, what are we going to do? I need a son. So he thought, well, maybe I'll do an Ashwamedha sacrifice. And in this way, we will be blessed and I'll be able to have a son. But then it was remembered that previously the 4 Kumaras had visited the kingdom and had predicted that when the Putra Kameshti sacrifice was done, then there would be a child. But the problem with that Putra Kameshti sacrifice, because this is Vishishta, the family guru, was involved in the advice here. The problem with that is the Putra Kameshti sacrifice had to be done by someone who had never seen a lady in his whole life. That's hard. Because usually you do see your mother when you're born. At least for a few minutes when you open your eyes. Human beings generally open their eyes pretty quickly after they're born. So, therefore, it was a problem. It was a big problem. So, they thought about it and came to the conclusion that there was a particular individual. His name was Rishya Shringa. Now, Rishya Shringa had not seen a woman for his whole life for the following reason. His father, starts with a K. Right now I forget his father's name. But anyway, his father was living in the forest. And his father was a good brahmachari, very detached and everything like that. And what happened is, once upon a time, there was a heavenly society girl sent down by Indra to sort of lure Rishi Shringa's father away from his austerities. And this heavenly society girl, because it was one of Indra's plans to do that, this heavenly society girl, she just tried to entice, seduce Rishi Shringa's father, Vibhontaka. Vibhontaka was his name, sorry, got it remembered now. I'm not reading notes, I'm just doing this from memory. So Vibhontaka wasn't interested. And she said, you have to give me a child, or else I'm going to commit suicide. You're going to be responsible for killing me. So, Vibhontaka was in anxiety. So he gave some of his genetic, he didn't have a relationship with her, but he gave some of his genetic material to her, if you understand what I mean. And she wasn't interested. She said, this is not what I intended. I wanted you to fall down. And she just threw that genetic material, and the genetic material was captured by a deer. The deer ate the genetic material somehow or other, was able to clone, crossbreed, something like that. And then as a result, the deer actually gave birth to a child with horns on his head, or one horn at least on his head. And that child was Risha Shringa. And the deer died. And so Risha Shringa, that means the deer-horned rishi, was brought up by his father. There was no mother or anything around. And his father was really, after this experience with this society girl, heavenly society girl, I think her name was Harsha, yeah. After his experience with this, Harsha, after his experience with this heavenly society girl, he decided, I'm having nothing to do with ladies, no ladies allowed here. Even he didn't want female animals in the forest. That's kind of hard. But anyways, but he didn't want ladies around. So Rishi Shringa grew up never, never, never seen a lady. And so, I guess his father was very maternal with him for some reason. So, okay, there's Rishi Shringa there in the forest. However, there was another problem simultaneous to this, which is that there was another king. His name was Romapad, which is a different kingdom. And Romapad means basically the king with hairy feet. Romapad. And Romapad, he had a problem. There was a drought in his kingdom. And this drought means nothing could grow. So people were starving. And then he was advised the only way to alleviate this drought, because he had committed inadvertently an offense against Brahmins, of a Brahmin, accidentally. So the only way to alleviate this drought was to bring Rishi Shringa into the kingdom. But Rishi Shringa's father was not interested in his son leaving him, because his son would then come in contact with ladies. So the king hatched a plan under the instruction of his Brahmin associates. And the king's plan was to have an attractive lady lure Rishi Shringa away from his ashram. So what happened, to make a long story short, is he called for all the attractive ladies and said, "Who can do it?" And one of them said, "No problem, Prabhu." And she said, "But I'm going to need a lot of money just to make facility to be able to do this." So the king arranged, under the instruction of this society girl, or girlfriend, or whatever, to construct a floating ashram that looked like an island. So it had palm trees and everything like that. So it would float down the river, or up the river, to where Rishi Shringa was with his father. Okay. Remember, Rishi Shringa's never seen a lady. So this floating ashram floats down to where Rishi Shringa was with his father, but some distance away. So the father and Rishi Shringa didn't see it. So they're spying out just to see when the father goes away and Rishi Shringa's left. So the father goes away to do some austerity or something like that for a little while. And this lady comes out of the ashram, or off the ashram, and she walks to the ashram of Rishi Shringa. And Rishi Shringa sees her and says, or thinks, she's a Brahmin, because she's dressed like a Brahmin. And he says, "Please accept my obeisances." And she says, "In my country, we embrace rather than offer obeisances. Alingana means embracement." So he says, "Okay, I guess I respect your culture, just like you respect mine." And he embraces her, and because there's a natural response when men and women have this physical interaction, he experiences something in Sanskrit called romancha. Romancha, just like we talk about in our prayer to Prabhupada every morning, romancha kampasru tarangabhajo, which means the hair standing on end. So his hair stood on end, and he thought, boy, this method of offering obeisances is even better. And she's a good-looking brahmachari. So he was, really attracted, not knowing how to identify the different symptoms. Yeah, it sounds like romance. Actually, I should put in the, so I can see the chat window if necessary. So anyway, yes, it is romance. Hold on a second, I made the chat window too big. So, so what happened is that he just like his eyes start rolling in his head, and then she hears the father coming back. So she runs away back to her floating island. Okay. Meantime, father comes back, sees his son just like completely bewildered, and he thinks, "What's happening with the guy?" And so he says, "I got to keep an eye on him. Maybe he has some psychological issues." So the ladies keep watching, and later on, the father goes away again, and this lady says to him, "Please come and see our ashram. Ashram is real nearby, so come and see." And so he thinks, what's the harm? Just visit another ashram of brahmachari. Not going to be any problem. So he gets on the floating ashram island, palm trees, and beautiful girls, and he sees the whole. He thinks it's a brahmachari ashram filled with beautiful girls, but he doesn't know it's beautiful girls. And so they float down or up the river until they get to the kingdom of Romapad. Remember Romapad? He's the king who had a problem with the drought in his kingdom. So they get to that kingdom. Okay. And so then what happens is it starts raining. It's just, everybody's ecstatic. Rain, 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 rain. Thank God it's raining. The drought has ended. Meantime, Vibhantaka gets back to his ashram and finds Rishi Shringa's gone. And he understands. He's a mystic. He's not stupid. He understands exactly what has happened. He gets really angry and he says, "I'm going to curse this Romapad for doing this." So Romapad knows that he's going to be cursed. So he's very proactive. So what he does is when Vibhantaka is heading towards his capital to curse him, he stations different people there who tell Vibhantaka, when Vibhantaka inquires, "Whose kingdom is this?" He tells people to answer, "It's Rishi Shringa's kingdom." So Vibhantaka goes and he hears continually, "Rishi Shringa's kingdom, Rishi Shringa's kingdom." He thinks, well, my son's kingdom, I can't do anything about it. So basically, he doesn't curse his son. Yeah, but he tells Romapad, as soon as they have a kid, I'm taking this Rishi Shringa back from your entangling situation. So then Dasarath hears about this and actually sends for Rishi Shringa, and they do the Putra Kameshti ceremony. And there is some kheer that comes out of the Putra Kameshti ceremony, which is shared by the three wives. And actually, what happens is Kaushalya and Kaikeyi get the main portion, and then they share some of that with Sumitra. So the reason they do that is that Sumitra has the two boys, Lakshman and Shatrughna, and both of them are servants, because they got, it's a very interesting story. Part of the sweet rice from Lord Rama's appearance, which was given to Kaushalya, or from Bhart's appearance, which is given to Kaikeyi because she's the most attractive person. And anyway, so what's happening is Lakshman is inseparable from Ram. Of course, he's Balaram, he's Lord Nityananda. He's inseparable from Ram. He'll never leave Ram. And Shatrughna is inseparable from Bhart. Of course, they do embark on separate pastimes in the future. Like Shatrughna actually goes to Mathura later on. This is after this whole Ramayana story is finished. Ravana is killed and everything, and kills Lavanashura and so many demons, and he establishes the kingdom of Mathura, which is very close to Vrindavan, Mathura Vrindavan. So that's actually a really interesting part of the story. So that's the appearance of Lord Ram. And Lord Ram went to the Gurukul of his spiritual master, Vasishta Muni, and we all know the story of how when he was very, very young, he was taken by the Samrita Muni to kill the demons who were harassing his sacrifice. So we don't have much time actually, started most likely. So let's see where we're going to start from right now. That was Marichi and Sabahu. Okay. Anyway, I guess we can start from that point. Whatever. So what happens is that there are these demons, Marichi and Sabahu, who are harassing Vishwamitra's fire sacrifice. Vishwamitra has taken a vow of non-violence because that will destroy his sacrifice if he gets violent. So he can't do anything about it. And these demons, these Rakshasas, were throwing stool and all sorts of blood and everything like that into the sacrifice and destroying it. So Vishwamitra eventually comes to Dasarath, and Dasarath receives him very nicely, and Dasarath says, basically, what can I do for you? Anything you want, I will do. This is the method of receiving a sannyasi or a Brahmin in your house. And he says, that is Vishwamitra, he says, I want Ram. And Ram can defeat these demons. And Dasarath, he gets really upset at this particular point. And he starts arguing with Vishwamitra. He says, look, I'll take my whole army. Ram is just a little boy. He's like 16 years old. Some commentators say 12, 16, but he was a little boy. And so I'm willing to sacrifice my life, but not Ram. And Vishwamitra gets really upset, and when he gets upset, it's a problem. So he gets ready to curse Dasarath, and he tells Dasarath, you're an embarrassment to your whole lineage, to your whole family line, because the rest of your family, they kept their promises, and you're breaking your promise. So, and he gets ready to leave, and Vishishta says, listen to him, he'll take care of Ram. No problem. Okay. So then, reluctantly, Dasarath agrees, and Ram goes with Vishwamitra, and on the way there, I'm leaving out a lot of details, but whatever. On the way there, they pass through this desolate forest, and there's basically no one in the desolate forest. Maybe some vultures from time to time are just hovering around this desolate forest. The trees have been stripped, it's just like, and it's very inauspicious. And Ram says, basically, what is this place? And Vishwamitra Maharaj, I guess, says, this is the forest of Tadaka. Now, Tadaka was actually a very beautiful girl before, and she got cursed to become a demoness or a Rakshasini. And she's the mother of Marich, Uncle Marich. So, and one of the two people who were harassing the fire sacrifice of Vishwamitra Muni. So Tadaka is in this forest, and she's resting right then. And so Ram just makes a sound with his bowstring. Boing! Tadaka gets up, and she sees Ram and Lakshman and Vishwamitra, and she gets very angry and gets ready to hurt them. And Ram is very reluctant, because Ram is very interested in protecting women. He's not interested in killing women, because Vedic culture means you protect the women, old people, children, and Brahmins. So Ram, he doesn't want to do anything with her, and it's getting close to dusk. Dusk means, the time between the daytime and the evening time, which at dusk time, the demons become very powerful. It's even mentioned that Lord Shiva, Lord Shiva's the greatest Vaishnava, Lord Shiva's parading around with all, or floating around, or flying around with all of his associates, and people who sort of don't observe too strictly, they have the associates of Lord Shiva, who are ghosts and goblins and hobgoblins and witches, put into their wombs, and then they give birth to an associate of Lord Shiva who may not have the highest qualities in this world. So Viswamitra says the demons become very powerful at this particular time, so kill her. So Ram takes out the bow and arrow, and he shoots her and kills her at that point. So then they proceed to the fire sacrifice of Viswamitra. So Viswamitra and his associates are doing this fire sacrifice. Meantime, Marich and Sabahu, they're actually, I guess, hovering above and getting ready to have some fun by desecrating the fire sacrifice. So they're throwing they start to throw all sorts of things. So Ram fires his arrow, which is like a chakra. It makes a circle, goes very, very quickly, to actually prevent all of the ingredients, all the refuse from being thrown onto the fire sacrifice and desecrating the fire sacrifice. And so these two rascals become very much incensed, that means angry. And Ram eventually fires an arrow at each one. And he kills Abahu, but Marich is actually sent into the ocean, like several hundred miles away. Some of the acharyas say like 800 miles away. And so he's just basically, okay, I'm not going to mess with this Ramchandra anymore. But there's another story about that, which we'll tell in a second. So what happened is that they performed the fire sacrifice, and then of course they proceed to Mithila to see the Sita Swayamvara. Now, before I tell that story, the Sita Swayamvara, then there's the story of what happened to Marich. Now, Marich wasn't completely convinced that Ram could not be defeated. So later on, when Ram and Sita and Lakshmana were in the forest, they had been banished, Marich decided to attack Ram again. And in order to do that, he took the form of an 8-legged beast called a Shadaba, and he, along with the other 8-legged beasts, which were either Rakshasas or just regular ferocious 8-legged beasts, he took the form, and they started to enter Ram's and Sita's and Lakshmana's hermitage. And so Ram fired his arrows, pew, 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 like machine gun bullets, at Marich. And Marich ran away, and he just escaped somehow or other. And this was Ram's plan, too. So Marich, at that particular point, decided to take sannyas. He thought, that's it. I'm traumatized. It's described later on that when Ravan asked him to take the form of a golden deer, first thing he tells Ravan is actually even the syllables Ra. There's like Rama. Even the syllable Ra causes me just to shake and just anxiety. And he said, I look behind every tree and I'm seeing Ram. Well, I wish I was that Krishna conscious as Marich. Looking behind every tree and seeing Krishna. So he was definitely Ram conscious. So, of course, later on he gives in to Ravana, because Ravana threatened him. He said, you can either be killed by me or you'll be killed by Ram. And he thought better to die by being killed by Ram, because that way you get liberated. Being killed by Ravana, there's no question of liberation. Okay, and so then we should leave some time open for questions about the Ramayana. So then anyway, then the next thing is Ram frees Ahalya from the curse that her husband Gautama Rishi gave. Ahalya was cursed to become. There's two ways the stories are told. Either she became a rock or disincarnate, which means like a ghostly body. But in any case, by the imprint of Ram's foot, she becomes freed. And the reason she was cursed is she had a relationship with Indra. Indra had taken the form of Gautama Rishi because he was very attracted to Ahalya. Ahalya was married to Gautama Rishi, of course, and she had a relationship with him. And she was also culpable because she really understood it was Indra. She understood, didn't act like her husband, lusty. Her husband was not lusty. And so she had to be punished. Indra was punished by losing his masculinity, and she was punished by becoming either disincarnate or a stone, depending on which version of the story you read. The Valmiki Ramayana says that she became disincarnate, like in a subtle, ghostly body. That's the Valmiki Ramayana, which I accept as authoritative, and Prabhupada accepted as authoritative. So then we don't have time for Sita Swinbar. So tomorrow here is Ram Nomi, and it is Ram Nomi in Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji. So we want to wish everybody a happy Ram Nomi and leave a few minutes open. Whoops, sorry about that. A few minutes open for questions. Let me just unmute you. Of course, we spoke a little longer today. So the questions. Will I give a Zoom class at 5 p.m. tomorrow? I'm not sure if there's a temple class here, and I don't know if it's the right etiquette. I'm not going to be giving that. We have a guest. And so I'm not sure it's the right etiquette for me to give a class at the same time. We'll have to figure it out. I'll let you all know by text message. So, Anadi, you have questions?
Oh, no, Maharaj. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, good to see you. It looks like you're cooking for Krishna. All right. So, who else has a question?
I have a question, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. What's your question?
Gurudev, yes. In the Vaishnav calendar says Ram fasting till sunset.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a little controversial. I mean, sometimes Prabhupada had us fast till noon. Sometimes Prabhupada had us fast till sunset. My understanding is, I'm looking at my calendar. It doesn't say anything. My understanding is that we fast till, well, anyway, I should probably say both things. So you can do either one. So the reason I fast till noon is that Lord Rama's appear in the Sun Dynasty, not the Moon Dynasty. And if you fast till dusk, that's appropriate for someone who appears in the Moon Dynasty, the appearance of the moon, like we do for Gaur Purnima. We fast until the moon appears in the evening. And for Krishna, he appeared at midnight, so we fast till midnight. And the actual festival is supposed to be the next day. That's Nandotsava. Actually 2 days, but the actual feast is supposed to be the next day. So, whatever. I mean, people follow in different ways. Some people have a Kadasi fast. Other people have just a regular grain feast. Sorry, Kadasi fast. A grain.
Yeah.
A grain
So,
thing. I actually just having a grain regular feast because that's when people come to the temple. You don't want to just give them a Kadasi class. Feast.
so now, another question is, did Ram appear midday or did he appear on midday?
That's not mentioned in the Valmiki Ramayana when he appeared. It's not really mentioned the time of the appearance, but he's a member of the Surya Vamsa, which is the Sun Dynasty.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm fasting until midday.
We follow Guru.
All right, so you can fast either way. Oh, Mother Irmela's paper said he appeared at midday. Okay, Okay, so he appeared at midday, so you fast till midday, and then you celebrate. And of course,
Okay.
our celebration is in the evening because it's during the week, and that's when people can come. But devotees fast till midday. Okay, and then a question from Lord Brahma. Ramaji, you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Oh, glories to Prabhupada.
Maharaj, in Bhagavad Gita, I don't remember the exact verse. I think in one of the purports, Prabhupada says, one who follows instructions is like Devata quality, and one who cannot follow instructions is a demoniac quality. But, then how can we explain Indra wanting to, have an illicit relationship with Ahalya?
How can we explain it? Because in this material world, we're all mixed. He's not a demon. Actually, according to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, no one is inherently a demon. Everyone is a devotee of Krishna. They're just covered. So we have both, as Indra does, both demoniac and godly qualities. It's the qualities that are demoniac or godly. But actually, we are servants of Krishna. And Indra's the same thing. By nature, he's a servant of Krishna, but he's, by the influence of the material nature, he's actually exhibiting or has exhibited some demoniac qualities. Because he's not a pure devotee. He's mixed. Things are not just all black or white. They're mixed. All right?
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, he's not a pure devotee. He's a sakama devotee. So he has some desires. That's life in the material world. Okay, I'm going to end now because it's time. And tomorrow here we're going to be celebrating Ramnami. I'm going to give a more elaborate, I guess, analytical class tomorrow about the lessons we can learn from the Ramayana, from Lord Ram's story. Because they're meant to be applied. Lord Ram's story is meant to be enjoyed, obviously. It's meant to attract us to Lord Ram, but it's also didactic, meant to teach us certain things. And so we're going to hear about some of the things we can learn from the story of the Ramayana tomorrow. So thank you very much. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami.